Welcome in, everybody, to the college basketball bracket breakdown show. Won't keep this first part too long. Want to hop right into the brackets, explain what we're going to go over today. But if you guys have not joined us in the Discord, be sure to do so. We've got a big couple weeks, of course, coming up for the NCAA tournament. We cover more than just college basketball, as you may know if you're a frequent viewer of the channel or already a member of the Discord. But I'm going to show you where you can find the package. All the links are down in the description of the video. If you just want the college sports package, which will get you access to the college basketball channel within our Discord, you can do $2 for 1 day access. You can do $5 for a week, $15 for a month, which would probably get you through all of March Madness up through the championship. And then you could do $145 for the whole year, which includes a 7-day free trial. That would get you college football in the fall when it starts up, get you to this time next year. So we cover college football, college basketball all the way through, every slate for, every single slate for both those sports. So be sure to check us out there. You're not going to find a better deal out in the industry. If you want an all sports package, we cover golf, NASCAR, MLB, NBA, NHL, soccer, which is EPL and Champions League, UFC, NFL, of course, when it comes back. Check out all those packages. The all sports is just $25 for the month, $225 for the year. Get you access to all of our Discord channels. So what I want to talk about today, and we're going to go more in depth on the DFS side of things, which is mainly what we cover in our Discord and with the sheets. It's got a big DFS focus. But today we're going to talk about a little bit of betting, but mostly bracket strategy, leverage, depending on the size of contest that you're in there, and what are those leverage spots? Where can we find some of that leverage, and how do we read the leverage tab on the sheet here? So we've got a college basketball betting sheet up. It'll have a few picks for each round here summarized at the bottom. With for tracking purposes and to be able to see what do we have in the queue still. So none up yet. Probably going to add some of those tomorrow for Thursday. I'm not sure if I'll have a play or not on the either of the play-in games tomorrow. So we have lines and KenPom spreads and totals for every game, KenPom rankings for every team. This is updated now to tomorrow. The 2 games are off that were today. And then all of Thursday is now set in stone. I've got to update the odds on a couple of games that there were winners from tonight that go into. But I'll get that done probably first thing in the morning with a full push of updated odds. So we have that. Of course, Friday's on there as well. This will stay updated throughout the tournament. Use it as a good source of, just easy team stats. We also, most people, of course, will probably already have access to a bracket, but this is one that we'll update each day as the games complete. If you ever want a quick, you're on our sheet and you want to say, all right, what's the bracket look like here? Where can we take advantage, maybe betting-wise or something going forward? You can take a look at the bracket without having to go somewhere else. The main thing that I want to talk about today, and we might play around with, I'll probably flip back and forth. Actually, let me pull up ESPN. Last year when we did this show, we built out a full bracket. I don't think I'm going to do that this year. I think what I'm going to do is just kind of go into some different leverage strategies, maybe how to build out a certain region through the Sweet 16 to play off of that leverage that we'll talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up um, a bracket on ESPN that we can kind of play around with, and I'll switch back and forth here and there to play with those as we talk through them. So what do I mean by leverage? What I mean by leverage is how many people are picking these teams to win in each round. So you'll see on the sheet, you've got, what's the public pick percentage versus their odds to go to that round or win the title. And then, of course, off of that, there becomes a leverage percentage based on, if their odds are better than the public pick percentage, they're going to have positive leverage. If they're going to have, if they're less odds than are being picked, they're going to have negative leverage. And that helps us pick out, and we can sort this by each round, but it kind of helps us pick out, when are the best places to knock people out. And it takes out, helps make some of those decisions a little more unbiased than some of, brackets in the past maybe you've built that you had. Maybe you let bias creep in a little bit, but I'm going to kind of go through each. I'll start out by going through, actually, let me just sort it out by region here. So we can sort by region on the sheet. And we'll start out in the East. This, having it sorted by region, lets you easily be able to figure out, all right, who in this region is positive, where should I take them, and then from there you can build out your bracket. And that's what we're kind of play around with here. UConn getting picked massively by the public, great team. They're 30% of your pool in a normal case is going to, in most every contest, smaller field is going to be probably even more, 30% of the public picking those. Before I get into specifics on the leverage, it all depends on what your pool size and who makes up your pool. If it's a lot of fans of one school, leverage is going to be there a little more on that specific school. If there is, if there is a very small amount of people in the pool, it's going to condense even more on some of these that are either negative or positive leverage of people either not picking or picking more of. And it might provide you even more of a leverage opportunity to fade somebody like a UConn at some point later in the tournament. And ultimately have a chance, an easy way to get to the top. Now, whether that happens or not, of course, we don't know that, but it provides us a nice way to be able to take advantage of, people over picking in pools of certain teams. And when the craziness happens, as it inevitably will, you stand to benefit from that. So big pools, you got to get a little more off the board. Starting out with the national championship winner, in most every pool, you're getting a lot more points for a national champion. So you really need to nail that. Large pools, I think fading, like for example, like there's $100 pool on DK that has a very big prize to first. A lot of entrants will be in that one. I think that really stands to be a place that you should fade a team like UConn. Go a little more off the board. Go to some of these positive leverage, lower seeds to win it all. And if you're one of the people that hit that, and there won't be many, you're going to stand a massive benefit when 30% of the public's picking UConn and you pick, let's just say Auburn. where 2.5% are picking them. You're going to, if you nail that, you're getting a ton of points. You're getting leverage off of UConn in the same region. Lots of things that you can do there. So that would kind of be the overarching thought is smaller pool. You can be a little more chalky in places, and I probably would be. And larger pools, got to get a little more off the board, especially on your national champion. So let's go ahead and talk through each region briefly. And like I said, I'll flip back and forth and talk about how to build some of these things out. But this is the East with UConn, Iowa State, Illinois, Auburn as the top four. If we start there, really like I've talked about, UConn has negative leverage with just how much they're being picked. I think small pools, they're fine as a national champion. Large pools, I would go away. When you're going away, where do you take them out? I think you can take them out, anywhere. If you do, obviously, I think they make a solid run in this thing. I don't see them losing in the first couple rounds. I think FAU or Northwestern's a good, fine matchup for them. I could see them losing to Auburn. So I think that would be the first place that I would look at if you're going to fade them. Potentially, what do you think of an Auburn or another team that they might play in that spot? And then, what do you think of the bottom half? So I would start to, even if you're in a larger pool and you want to go off the board, starting to think about UConn going out in the Sweet 16, I think makes some sense. Even to get leverage, you don't have to knock them out there. I mean, you could take them to the national championship and lose and get a bunch of leverage still, because most people that have them there are having them to win. If you have whoever's playing against, you've got some nice leverage there. So I don't think it's one of those that I would look to force them out early. But if you like a team like an Auburn or somebody that Illinois that would reach them in the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, and you want to push them to the Final Four to really get some leverage, I don't have a problem with that. Iowa State, kind of neutral across the board. They are positive. They're negative leverage early on, as in a lot of people are picking them to advance in the first couple rounds, as most do the top 3 seeds. But they turn into some positive leverage as people start knocking them out to go to the Final Four. As you can see, 2.2% positive leverage to make it to the Final Four out of the Elite Eight. 15% are picking them to win in the Elite Eight round. 17% odds. Kind of same thing the rest of the way through. So they have the second positive leverage from a national champion in the East, behind Auburn, who gets a lot of positive things in this region. Not an easy draw because they're going to play UConn early. You can look at that another way too and say, that's going to be a nice confidence booster if they were to knock them off. I think they have the tools to do it. Auburn's a very good team. Kind of neutral early on, and then it just boosts. They're one of the highest leveraged teams in all from making to the Elite Eight in the round of the Sweet 16 all the way to the national title. They actually have the highest leverage of a national champion at 3.2%. They're being picked 2.5 with 5.7% odds. So I think they're a very good opportunity here. If you think they can get by, UConn, I do like Auburn in this region. Looking on down the board a little bit, BYU matches up with Duquesne in the first round. That's kind of a toss-up with where they're being picked pretty heavily in that matchup, but they're getting a lot of positive leverage as you go into the next round and beyond, as they will meet up with an Illinois team who struggles defensively. Yes, they played pretty well in the of course, in the Big Ten tournament, but they do struggle defensively a little bit. So BYU could be a look to knock them out there, and then they would get Iowa State, which, again, not an easy matchup by any means, but definitely one that, is going to be lined probably within a few points. So there's some very solid positive leverage on BYU to take a shot there. Looking at the rest of the board is kind of neutral in the East, but looking from there, I kind of like to zoom in on first round matchups. So Washington State against Drake. Right now, the field is taking Drake at 53%, which gives Washington State the most positive leverage in the East in round one. Also, looking at the 8-9 matchup, Northwestern has about 5% positive, 5.5% positive leverage over FAU, who could be a popular team just because of their run last year. UAB against San Diego State has some nice 5% leverage there. Let's see how that compares to other 12 seeds. At 5% positive there, McNeese State is 3.8, JMU is 2, and Grand Canyon is 1. So the most positive leverage of the 12 seeds would be UAB, if you like them there. So let's kind of build this region out. I'm going to have to create a new bracket, and then I'll share my screen. I did one the other night, just kind of playing around. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this once I share, and I can kind of explain what I'm trying to do. So we've got UConn, like them round one. Mentioned the slight leverage for Northwestern over FAU, UAB, Auburn, kind of like that matchup going into round two. BYU going up with Illinois, and then talked about the Washington State leverage, slight leverage there as the best, though, for round one in the East. Slight positives on Morehead State and Yale. I don't see picking them. So that's kind of interesting that, Auburn has negative 3% leverage there in round one, but they quickly, once you get to the Sweet 16, they jump massively in leverage. So that's kind of, round one in that region. Then we start talking about, round one is just not near as important as these later rounds and grabbing your leverage there. So, yeah, we can pick these little matchups like a UAB to upset San Diego State. And there's not a lot of opportunity cost there, especially if you have either one of those teams losing to Auburn in the next round. So let's go ahead and knock UConn into the Sweet 16 to go up with Auburn. Let's see. I said BYU winning in the round of 32, has a 14% positive leverage currently, whereas Illinois is negative 16. So I think that's a very nice upset pick there. Grab you some strong leverage. So BYU over Illinois is a very nice looking one there. When you talk about Washington State and Iowa State, Iowa State has negative 12.5 in round two. Washington State is positive 7, so there is some leverage there. I don't really like that upset pick. Just thinking about the teams, I've liked Iowa State a lot of this year. Some people are low on them, at least for the 2 seed. Being a 2 seed, I don't think so. I think they got strong guard play that can carry them with Taman Lipsey, Keshawn Gilbert. Really like them. Maybe not to go to the Final Four or anything, but so now you can kind of see how I would build some of these things out to get some leverage. And really just based on the numbers. really only put one, bias, we'll call it, with that Iowa State pick there. And then we jump into, all right, if we want to really grab some strong leverage with Auburn, Iowa State, BYU, let's compare that one in the Sweet 16. Iowa State's -8. BYU's +10. That could be a solid one there. So let's just do BYU Auburn, with Auburn going to the Final Four there. So that's kind of the way that I would go about building out the East, with just looking at leverage, and kind of building off when is the best time to knock some of these teams out. I'll go a little quicker through the other two regions, and we can kind of talk through. So let me switch back. So we go to the Midwest, and I might have to take a break in a sec to plug my computer up. It just wants to go dead, and I really don't want to. I really don't want to go off of here. Midwest, Purdue, they're solid for a 1 seed. Just kind of flat across the board. I think I don't have a problem keeping them in for a while. Same with Tennessee. When I first saw the bracket, they were my pick to win. Just with the path that they had, I think they have some solid positive leverage to win it all at the 2 seed. Creighton, same way. So I think the top seeds in the Midwest are actually maybe a little stronger than some might think. For a bracket pool, Kansas, a lot of question marks about them with injuries and what's going to happen there. Some strong leverage, and this might not be fully updated, but right now 80% are picking Texas. I'll be interested to see how that shifts across the rest of tomorrow, with now their opponent being locked in, with Colorado State beating UVA tonight. So we'll see how that changes. But right now, Texas being massively overpicked. So that might be a spot that we look at taking Colorado State to upset them. South Carolina's a -10 leverage against Oregon in round 1. That's an interesting one. Samford's a +8.8 against Kansas. That's becoming a fairly popular one. As we look into the later rounds, Gonzaga gains some solid leverage to win in the Sweet 16. Same with TCU. They're solid. Oregon, who I've already mentioned. Texas become, if you think they can get through game 1, and again, this might change. That hard negative leverage might come down a little bit, but they're solid, positive leverage in round 2 to knock off somebody like a Tennessee. I don't think that's necessarily the route that I would go, but let's kind of build out now kind of how I would go about the Midwest as we move down to the bottom right of the bracket. Purdue, let's see, Utah State, TCU, that round 1 matchup is positive to TCU, so we'll go there. Like them anyway in that matchup. McNeese and Gonzaga. McNeese is decent, positive for a 12 seed, but I really like Gonzaga in that matchup. Samford and Kansas, I definitely think Samford's live. We'll go with the upset there. We'll go with Oregon to upset South Carolina. That's some nice numbers. I like Creighton. We'll go with Colorado State for now. I think that number comes down. So I think it's going to become a lot more neutral. And I think Texas is the better team. They have, just a little more talent, a little more tournament experience, in my opinion, which I think can carry them to a win there. So as we look at TCU and Purdue in round number 2, definitely some positive leverage to look at the TCU side. I think I don't know. I think Purdue stays in here. Again, you don't have to go completely off the board with these leverage rankings. I mean, you don't have to pick everybody who just is leverage. You can go a little more chalky in some spots. We'll go with Gonzaga here, like them, Tennessee, and Creighton. Let's see here. All right, and then Tennessee, and I like Gonzaga to pull that upset Tennessee, then to go to the Final Four with some positive stuff there. So 2 SEC schools already there in the Final Four. I'm going to talk quickly through these last couple, and then we'll get on out of here. I don't want to make this video way too long, so I've kind of explained how to go about building this out. And we will definitely. I'll be around for questions. So let's talk through the South and the West. See where some of the leverage is here. Houston has some negative leverage, but if you're picking them to go to the champ and win it, they're still solid as far as where they're being picked versus their odds to win the national championship. So I think they're an interesting pivot to a UConn and a smaller field pool. I mean, on the flip side, they do have some strong negative leverage to be knocked out early in bigger pools. But ultimately, I don't have a problem with you taking them as far as you want them. They're a very good team, and it's not one of those that, wow, they just have to get knocked out. They're being way overpicked. So Marquette, Kentucky, kind of similar. Marquette, I think people are having question marks about Tyler Kolek and his injury. So right now they're being a little underpicked. I like them in the region. Kentucky, from a leverage side, they're slightly negative all the way across the board. I think they could get bounced early. Duke, I think people are low on Duke. I'm by no means high on them, but I do think they get a fair draw. They're going to have a fairly tough second round matchup more than likely, but if they match up with Wisconsin, I think they get by round one fairly easy, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. Texas Tech, so really like them. Their leverage numbers look very nice to make a win a few games in the tournament right now. And I just continue to think these are a little wonky right now with not having any time with the actual opponent up, with Florida being way overpicked right now. Well, I'm going to see how that comes, by tomorrow night is that number came down a little bit from negative 31. Some of the other positives, and then on the flip side, the opponent there, Boise State or Colorado, is very positive all the way across the board. The 8-9 in this region, actually, Nebraska and A&M are solid leverage numbers. Can they knock off Houston? Maybe that's a spot you take. It's not something I'm inclined to do. If you go down to, we'll go on to the West region. This is the strongest feeling that I have about knocking out a 1 seed, and it's North Carolina, who I'm somewhat a fan of. That would be my second, right behind Virginia Tech. But there is no way in any bracket pool I have them going to the Final Four, just with how it seems like they're getting picked this year. And, they have a strong following, of course, and probably have a lot of fans involved in this, but they're getting picked around 10%. That's come down a little bit to 9.4, but they only have 2.8% odds to win this thing. They have strong negative leverage to knock them out in the round of 32 and the Sweet 16. So I think that's where I'm going to look to take them out, is either like a Michigan State, who is probably where I'll go in the Mississippi State matchup. You can see Michigan State has very strong leverage over Carolina. Mississippi State has some as well if you go that side. But I think I'll have them either losing in round 2 or round 3. If they do get by there, they would match up more than likely with a Alabama, St. Mary's. Could be a Grand Canyon or Charleston, of course. But I think one of those 2 games is going to trip North Carolina up. So, that's where you can really gain some leverage. I think people look at this region and say it's just weak. And people just aren't taking the chance against North Carolina. And I think that provides us a great opportunity. New Mexico, very strong leverage. I have them going over Clemson in round 1, making maybe even winning more than just that game. So New Mexico is one of my favorite lower seeds in this region. Charleston has a solid 9% leverage over Alabama, so you could go that route. So I think this region has the makings to get kind of crazy. And I think I would definitely, this is showing some of the strongest leverage between the top 3 seeds of any region in this thing. Arizona does have, once you get through, they're a little more neutral in the first couple rounds. And when you get into the Final Four, they have some of the best positive leverage to win the national championship of anybody in this field at 2.6. I think that's actually second to Auburn. It is. So they're an interesting pick. Michigan State at 1.3, I think, percent positive leverage. I think they are an interesting national championship pick in very large field. Maybe if you're building out a few different brackets, you could do something with them. Marquette's an interesting one in that same scenario as a 2 seed with some positive leverage. But I really do think I would get a little more off the board in this region. Pick some upsets. Don't be afraid to pick a Michigan State to the Final Four. Don't be afraid to go off the board, but send Arizona as a little more of a chalky. But I do think this one's going to be the craziest. So that's kind of how I read the leverage scores and everything. Wanted to keep this around 30 minutes. Be back tomorrow evening for the DFS preview for Thursday. Really excited. Got my first King of the Bracket ticket this year, so we'll be in that, building out at least for Thursday. We'll see how it goes. So excited for that. Good luck to everybody in your brackets. See you tomorrow night for the DFS preview.